New York Giants quarterback Jaxson Dart is back in the lineup after missing games due to a concussion, and here's how the team can make sure that he doesn't have to leave it again.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day, and now the number one sports podcast. My name is Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And as always, welcome on into our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. Thanks so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Game Time. Download Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, Giant fans, it's Monday Night Football. This is a special Monday edition of Locked On Giants. So what we're going to take a look at is Jaxson Dart. He is back in the lineup. He's been cleared to return after missing the last two games due to a concussion. So we're going to take a look at some of the things the Giants can do to maybe protect him a little bit better moving forward so that he doesn't have to deal with a concussion again, hopefully, fingers crossed, okay? Then in segment 2, special teams hasn't been very good lately. So I'm going to zero in on a couple of areas where they've just been lacking. And I'm not really sure why this has happened, but we'll look at it anyway. And then finally, in segment 3, the Giants and Patriots, as I mentioned, they square off. And what I did was I took a look at the amount of money invested by the Giants and Patriots in each position group and who's getting the better value in each position group. So we'll take a look at that in segment 3. Again, welcome on in to everybody. All right, let's get into it. All right, so Jaxson Dart is back. He will start Monday night against the New England Patriots. And here's the thing with Jaxson Dart. So in his first comments since the concussion happened against Chicago, he said that, basically the 4 times that he's been in the medical tent, it was really 3 for a head injury. But still, that's kind of a lot if you think about it. The challenge with Jaxson Dart and the Giants offense in general is that it's an RPO-based type of offense, which means that obviously, based on the read, Jaxson Dart's going to have to decide whether to run it, whether to throw it, or take it in himself. So I wondered if maybe some tweaks to the offense might help moving forward. So according to True Media, Jaxson Dart, he's been primarily in the shotgun. The numbers that I have, 203 times out of 245 dropbacks. And those dropbacks, by the way, include the times he was sacked, not necessarily the pass attempts he was able to get off. Now, my thinking here to help protect himself, the offensive line has been run blocking pretty well. So why not have Jaxson Dart play a little bit more under center and hand the ball off to one of the running backs, okay? The running backs over the last 3 games have averaged 144.3 rushing yards per game. And 2 of those games, they've actually logged their season high in rushing yards. So why not lean into that strength? I mean, it's the same thing, really. If you think about it, you can still give the illusion that Jaxson Dart might take off with the ball, but hand it off to the running backs. Don't rely on Jaxson Dart, who's basically been averaging 4.1 rushing attempts on design runs since he became the starter. All right, another thing that can maybe help Jaxson Dart out is pre-snap motion. So the Giants, according to SIS, Sports Info Solutions, they've run pre-snap motion on 38% of their snaps, which is dead last in the league. All right. Now, they've run the RPOs, as I mentioned, because they're an RPO-based offense. They've run that 16% of the time, which is third most in the league. So why not create situations where you're running more pre-snap motions to help Jaxson Dart determine what the defense is going to do? Because, again, with the RPOs, it's based on, real time, what he's seen the defense does. And, maybe he takes off because he thinks he's got a good matchup or whatnot. Pre-snap motion can maybe help with some of that as well as to what the defense is planning to do. So why not incorporate a little bit more of that and see if that doesn't help him with figuring out, what to do and whether to change something up or, take the chance if need be. Now, offensive coordinator Tim Kelly, he spoke about situational awareness on Friday when the coordinator spoke to the media. And, the bottom line is the coaches need to do a little bit better job, I think, in putting Dart into better situations. Dart, he feels like he's made smart decisions all along, which, for the most part, he has. But there's that tendency to want to put the Superman cape on and just go for the goal, so to speak, instead of living to see another down. And you don't want to say to the kid, okay, you know what? Be careful and go down on first and second down and on third and goal line situations. Go for it. You don't want to get into that type of situation. But there are things, like I said, that the coaches can do to help Jaxson Dart so that he's a little bit more judicious with when he takes off, when he runs, and just, be a little bit more careful as opposed to taking unnecessary hits in the course of running the offense. So I'm curious to see, with Jaxson Dart returning to this game on Monday night tonight, do the Giants dial some things back? Because remember, this is going to be the first time Mike Kafka, the interim head coach, is solely running the show for the offense. In other words, he doesn't have Brian Dable saying, okay, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. It's going to be Kafka's plan with input from Kelly and the rest of the offensive assistant coaches. And I'm curious to see if they change anything up to maybe reduce the amount of design runs for Jaxson Dart, put him in a better situation so that that temptation isn't there. Because Jaxson Dart, bless his heart, he's not afraid. He's fearless. He wants to, try and run everything and be the hero. And if you're going to be the hero, you got to be smart. You got to slide. And even then, you're not necessarily immune to getting injured. So we'll see how the Giants run it on offense and if they make any tweaks to what they're doing. And hopefully it'll pay off for them in the long run. All right, Giant fans, coming up next, special teams has had some issues the last couple of weeks or last few weeks. So I'm going to break down a couple that I just don't get. All right, that's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, the World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open up, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You pull up the app, and the layout makes it so simple to scroll through the matchups and compare seat views. Pick a game, tap a section, and have your tickets locked in within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. The seat view feature is a game changer. You literally see what the pitch looks like from your exact seat location before you buy. Prices include fees up front. There are no last-second surprises at checkout. And alerts for the teams and matches make it easy to grab tickets the moment they drop instead of missing out. So go on and take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Game Time. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Monday Night Football tonight, the Giants at the New England Patriots. And of course, right after the game is over, I'm going to try and get a podcast out to you with takeaways, specifically focusing on some of the differences maybe we see with Jaxson Dart returning, with the new defensive coordinator being Charlie Bullen, what changes we're going to see, and just general takeaways like we always do after a game. So hope you will tune in for that. Okay, in this segment, I want to focus a little bit on special teams and some of the head scratching things that have developed with special teams. And there's a couple of things here that I want to mention. The first is the decision to go back to putting Eric Gray, running back, on kickoff returns. Now, Eric Gray, who was just activated off of IR last week, here's the thing with him: 81 touches in his career, and he's had 6 fumbles. His kickoff return numbers: 17 kickoff returns for 344 yards. That's a 24.2 average. 50% of his kickoff returns have gone past the 20. Those are not good numbers, folks. They're just not. In terms of starting field position, the New York Giants' average starting field position on a kickoff return is 31.7 yard line. That's third in the NFL. All right. Now, last week, it was the 20-yard line. So this is with, that 31.7 average starting field position. That was before Eric Gray came back. And I'm not saying, that necessarily based on one game, Eric Gray is the reason why the Giants dipped so much. But you remember on his kickoff return, one of them, he muffed it. And he picked it up and, he tried to return it. But here's the problem with Eric Gray as a kickoff returner, and it's interesting because Michael Gabriel, the special teams coordinator, said, he's got good vision, the running back thing, you could see the whole. I went back and I looked at his kickoff returns. I don't see good vision. I see him running into defenders. I don't see him cutting and finding daylight. Michael Gabriel does this every day and knows a whole lot more than I do. But when I look at the film, I just don't understand why you would put Eric Gray back there. Is it because, okay, you don't want to put him on offense? You don't want to risk, putting Tyrone Tracy back there or Devin Singletary back there because you need them? That could be it. That's probably what it is. But I just as soon have Gunnar Olszewski do it because he's been effective doing it for most of the season. All right. If Deonte Banks is healthy, put him back there. Now, I know last week Deonte Banks wasn't healthy, so maybe that's what factored into, putting Eric Gray on there. But overall, I'm just not impressed with Eric Gray as a kickoff returner. I don't think he's a natural fit for that. But the Giants are going to keep trotting him out there and hope for the best, I guess. All right. Now, the other guy who's had kind of a bad stretch for most of this month is punter Jamie Gillan. Now, Gillan in the past, if you go and you look at his games, there's usually a clunker in each of his games. Very rarely does he have a clean, game with solid punts. But the last 3 weeks in particular have been kind of rough for him. All right. So in looking at his gross average, in weeks 1 through 9, he averaged 44.9 yards per punt. The last 3 games, he's been averaging 40 yards per punt. All right. And as I mentioned before, there's been at least one clunker in the batch. All right. Jamie Gillan, look, I get it. He's a left-footed punter and it gives them an advantage. But if he's not flipping the field, what good is it? I'd rather have a right-footed punter who can flip the field and give the Giants advantageous field position than to have a punter who's a left-footed punter and he doesn't flip the field. And I just, especially given the problems the defense has had, the last thing you want to do is you want to give the opposing offense an advantageous starting field position. So I'm not, necessarily saying that Gillan has been the catalyst for the defensive woes. That's a whole different, episode. That's a whole different episode. But I just don't feel like there's that complementary element to flipping the field, giving the defense, an advantageous position, and just being able to get the ball back. And I don't know. To me, that's kind of contributed to the Giants' woes in these games. Now, here's the other thing. I just want to talk about last week, and in particular, Jamie Gillan's performance. Last week against the Lions, they were in a dome. There was no wind, no elements, nothing to really affect any kind of, the kicking. But yet, Jamie Gillan struggled. He had one clunker in his batch. I think one of his punts went for a fair catch, and the other one was decent. That is concerning. You would think inside a dome you would be consistent. Now, Michael Gabriel was asked about that. Is it the drop that is the problem? And in the past, that has been a problem with Jamie Gillan, where if the drop of the ball is just off just a little bit, then the foot has to compensate, to hit it. And sometimes, when you compensate, the ball will take a weird flight. But in the dome, again, there was no air. There was nothing to really affect the drop. And, Gabriel is like, oh, he works on it. He'll correct stuff. But when you only have really one job to do and you're not doing it consistently, is that not a concern? I mean, it is for me. And that's really all Jamie Gillan has to do is punt. I mean, they took him off of kickoffs. They have Younghoe Koo doing that now. And yes, Jamie has to, he's the holder on place kicks, but that's something, he's been doing forever. So I don't know. I mean, just the whole last few weeks and the inconsistencies that I've spoken about has me wondering if they can go forward with Jamie Gillan. Now, in terms of money, Gillan is signed through 2027. In 2026, he has a $3.316 million cap hit, which is the seventh highest amongst punters. He's got $800,000 in guaranteed money in 2026. So if the Giants wanted to move on from him in 2026, that wouldn't be that bad of a hit. All right, we're not talking $22 million in dead money. We're only talking $800,000. All right. If they were to move on from Jamie Gillan, they would save $1.183 million, and they would take a $2.133 dead money cap hit. Folks, look, I get it. You'd want to stick with a guy who has guaranteed money. But again, what's more important here? Consistency. And, we'll see how Jamie Gillan does the rest of the way. But kind of that performance in the dome was, if that wasn't an eye-opener, then I don't know what to tell you. So I would like to think that things will get better. But the last 3 weeks, they have been rough. They've really been rough. And, again, if you're not going to flip the field to your team's advantage, then what's the point? So we'll see how the Giants play it out with Jamie Gillan, but it's got to be better. You can't blame the Gunners on this one. The gross is just how far he's kicking it. And obviously the net is, the Gunners and the coverage team factor into the net. So, just he's got to be better. It's bottom line. So, all right, Giant fans, coming up next, Giants Patriots are tonight, Monday night. We'll take a look at who's getting better value at each position between the two teams. That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The holiday season is one of the best times for sports with bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. And while we're all making choices every day, one of the fun places to make the right call is with Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less and on at least 2-player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats, such as fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. The early payout feature is a great bonus. When your lineup starts strong, you may get the option to cash out early. And the new stacks feature lets you choose the same player up to 3 times in one lineup, like more on a quarterback's passing yards, touchdowns, and rushing yards. So go on and download the PrizePicks app today and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. Again, Giants, Patriots tonight, if you're watching this on Monday Night Football, if you're watching it over the weekend. We got a day or so to go. But anyway, let's take a look at the Giants and Patriots. And I thought we'd take a different type of look in that who's getting the most value out of each position group. So thanks to data at Over the Cap, I went through the list and I've got a list of who's got, who's paying more at each position group and where the value is. All right. So let's kick it off with quarterback. The Giants are carrying Jameis Winston, Jaxson Dart, and Russell Wilson. They're paying way more for their quarterback group. Russell Wilson is basically going to be quarterback 3 moving forward. All right. Now that Jaxson Dart is back in the lineup, the Giants, they're just not getting the best value right now from their quarterbacks. And that's not Jaxson Dart's fault. That's just the whole position group in general. The Patriots are getting far better value and far better production from their quarterback group. All right, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I'm going to loop them all together. The Patriots are paying a little bit more for running back, receiver, and tight end. The Giants, they have obviously, Malik Neighbors is sitting on IR, so that kind of skews the numbers a bit. But the Patriots, they're getting better value and better production from their skill position players, and it's not even close. Not even close. All right, offensive line. The Giants actually have more invested in the offensive line, but they're getting value out of that group. All right, so according to Pro Football Focus, the Giants have the 9th best pass blocking efficiency rating for their offensive line. The Patriots aren't that far behind. They're actually tied for 10th, but the edge goes to the Giants. That offensive line has been playing pretty well. So, the big money is obviously in Andrew Thomas. Across the board, Andrew Thomas has been worth it. All right. Now, interior defensive line. The Patriots have more money invested. They are second against the run. The Giants, 32nd against the run. All right. No brainer there. The edge rushers. The Patriots have more invested in their edge rushers. Again, the Giants, because they have Abdul Carter in that group, but on a rookie deal, they're going to benefit from that in terms of the money spent. But in terms of sacks per attempt, really not that much of a difference if you think about it. So New England is 20th in sacks per attempt. The Giants are 23rd. Brian Burns has been carrying the Giants in that regard. And I mentioned, Abdul Carter being on a rookie deal. Kayvon Thibodeau was also on a rookie deal. So that's why that number's a little skewed there. All right. Defensive secondary. This is a split. The Giants have more money invested in safeties, but the Patriots have more money invested in the cornerbacks. I kind of wish that was reverse, given the cornerback play of the Giants, but it's not. All right, so that being said, the Giants are 23rd against the pass. The Patriots are 17th against the pass. So who's getting better value? You could say the Patriots are in just about every area, most every area. The Giants, well, there's a reason why they're 2-10, just like there's a reason why the Patriots have the winning record that they have. And, you line up and you play it every week. You see how things play out because, this is not obviously an indicator as to how the game is going to go. But it's kind of interesting in terms of the jobs that have been done in building up the rosters. And are you getting the most out of it? Now, the Giants might say, oh, we've had some injuries in the back end of the defense. Yeah, you've had injuries in the back end, but you haven't had injuries for the most part in the front 7. And yet you can't stop the run. You can't, the pass rush has been neutralized because you can't stop the run. So what's the excuse there? The answer is there is no excuse. So maybe the coaching change that the Giants made will help fix that. Perhaps, we'll see what Charlie Bullen brings to the table. Charlie Bullen, when he spoke to the media on Friday, talked about it's going to be player-centric as opposed to play-centric. And if that's going to be the big difference in the Giants' defense, I'm here for it. But overall, the Giants roster, it's interesting. I thought it was one of the better rosters that they had put together way back in the summertime. And, just seeing how things have transpired. Some of it's on coaching, yes, but maybe the roster just wasn't as good as I thought it was. And the record proves it. So, where do they go from here? Well, we will find out on Monday night. Giants at Patriots. And then after that, of course, it'll be the bye week. And also coming up this week, General Manager Joe Schoen will be speaking to the media, as I understand it. So we'll see how that all comes together, because there's going to be a lot to talk about with Joe Schoen. A lot of changes that have come on, and of course, the bad record. So we'll have that all for you here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Hope you will tune in. As always, thank you for spending part of your day with us here on Locked On Giants. For your next listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Man Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition. Again, I will see you after Monday Night Football as soon as I can. I'll have an episode out for you. We'll have Joe Schoen takeaways later in the week. There won't be crossover Thursday because it is a bye week, so we'll just fill the week with other programming. Hope you will tune in. Until then, I'll see you tomorrow.